across to Tel Aviv, where there is breaking news, where Israel says, as the most recent numbers we have is 7 hostages have just been released and are in the custody of the Red Cross. Families and supporters have gathered once again at Hostages Square, where the atmosphere is a mix of relief, emotion and ongoing uncertainty. Our Rise international correspondent Adefemi Akinsonya is there.
Good morning. We are live in Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, Israel. This has become a focal point for the Israeli people, for the families and well-wishers of hostages. This is an incredibly historic morning, an incredibly historic day. The first batch of the 20 Israeli hostages due to be released from captivity under Hamas's control for the past 2 years. It is also a historic moment because also this morning, in the coming moments, we're expecting U.S. President Donald Trump to arrive here in Israel. His day will be spread across Israel and Tel Aviv and different parts of the nation before moving on to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, where ongoing peace negotiations have been taking place. But coming back to here in Israel, here in Tel Aviv, Donald Trump will be arriving any moment. His agenda will be firstly to go over and address the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament. Thereafter, he is expected to meet with family members of the hostages. And as you can hear, there is a lot of excitement. There's a lot of anticipation, but definitely still caution for the lion's share of people here. This has come at a time where they believe it couldn't have come any sooner. Just around me, you can see Israeli flags, many ribbons, many well-wishers showing themselves, screens also broadcasting live pictures so that the people in the square can be able to see the first images of the Israeli hostages being released. As I said, they are going to be released in batches. We are expecting that the first group will be released at 8 a.m. local time, so that is any moment now. Donald Trump himself is expected to land around 9:30 a.m. local time before moving on to the Knesset, before speaking to the members of the hostages' families. So standing here, being able to see history happening, the anticipation is palpable. There is a lot of excitement. These are people who have felt forgotten for a long time. Some of them feel betrayed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership at this time. But what we can see is so much unity, so much anticipation, so much patriotism as we wait for the historic pictures of those hostages to be released.
Right. Well, of course, we've just heard from Adefemi, who is live from Tel Aviv. So since that report came in, of course, we know that Donald Trump has arrived. He was greeted by Benjamin Netanyahu. There was a warm embrace there. Looks like lots of smiles around. And I mean, Rufai, I totally understand your skepticism at the scenes that we're seeing today. What are some of your insights? Do you think the ceasefire will hold this time around, or do you think it's...
So with due respect, all I see is a lot of ground hypocrisy on the part of Netanyahu. But I want to empathize with the families out there that are seeing their loved ones in Israel. And with all these prisoners, hope I think that people can come back home. Like I said before, I don't support what Hamas did on the 7th of October, but I don't support the hypocrisy of Netanyahu. And that's why when Steve Witkoff was making a statement yesterday, was Netanyahu booed or not? He was booed. Because the Israeli people have been able to see through who Netanyahu is. Vimbai, a deal of this nature has been on ground since 2024. Netanyahu deliberately did not take it because of his own hypocrisy and what he wanted to do. He wanted to fight on. So there's no difference. What the deal that was around in January, no difference. In fact, those deals were a lot better because the future of Gaza will have been in the hands of the Palestinians. But now you are having a board of peace. Over 100 and something nations have recognized Palestine as a nation of its own. And you're having a board of peace where the likes of Tony Blair, that wasn't successful with the Middle East Quartet, will be the ones to do the administration of Palestine? What world are we living in? Is it because these people have nobody to fight for them? And Israel have people to fight for them? Is that it? Is that it? When the Jewish people were dispersed all this while before the likes of Theodor Herzl started with the Zionist movement that brought about Israel today, is it because they had people that stood by them and the Palestinian people had nothing? Even look at the world media. The world media is all focusing on Tel Aviv. So do you think there are people on ground in in Gaza, Palestinian territory, that are not happy that people came back home? Where's the world media in Gaza today, on the streets of Gaza, welcoming their own people back? It shows the inequality in the world. It shows that we have a very unequal world. And you want us to celebrate that? What I want is a world that is fair to all, that is equitable to all. Israel keeps claiming that, oh, the trucks are coming in. When they stop an United Nations agency, UNRWA, and they put in their own Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, what happened? Wasn't Gaza Humanitarian Foundation killing a lot of people? So today is another blight. We'll see how this peace they will want. Do I want peace? Yes, Vimbai, I want peace in that region. But peace will come from respect. Respecting the lands of the Palestinian people. And Israel should stop occupation and building more. After we had Oslo 1 and Oslo 2, who broke Oslo 1 and Oslo 2? Wasn't it Israel? After that agreement was signed that took the life of Yitzhak Rabin, because some extremists in Israel had to kill Yitzhak Rabin because they felt, oh, he's seen a lot of land. Who started building more in the West Bank area? Who is still occupying West Bank? And there's another lie that Israel lies that, oh, they are not occupying Gaza. But if you want to do registrations of you have to pretty much go through Israel. Israel still controls some parts of, some things about the livelihood of Gaza. So what deceit are we having? For a land that Israel came to meet them on that land? Let me flip the script, Vimbai. Do you know this crisis will have been on our doormat here in Africa? Do you know that there was a proposition for the Israelis to move to Uganda at a point before the Zionists rejected it? If they have moved to Uganda, let's flip the scripts, and they had moved to Uganda, do you know people from Uganda will have been facing this and be fighting on their land encroachments? So this could have happened to Africa. All I just want is fairness. A lot of bloodshed has happened. I condemn what Hamas did. And what Hamas did on October 7th is unforgivable. But there's also proportionality in reaction. And that's what Israel has not done properly. Netanyahu has taken this war too far. He's made it about himself because he gets support from America. And it's not been fair on the people. And that's what we should think of. Think of the over 6,000 lives lost. Think of the journalists have been killed. Think of all that has transpired. So when people say it's a happy day today, so we now live in a world over 6,000 people can just, and some people have the nerve not to call it a genocide, and they are saying, oh, the number is not up to genocide, half of them were Hamas fighters. I am excited that Lemsky, the man that defined genocide, was a Jewish man. Go and hear what Lemsky said in his word. It's the intent that matters. A United Nations Commission declares something genocide. Somebody is saying that a United Nations that have been discredited because Israel and Netanyahu discredited the commission. Can you see how they don't even respect United Nations?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discrepancies here because we're reaching a place in, geopolitics where there is mutual suspicion of which has expanded beyond the global north and the global south, if I may put it that way. Various institutions are now being called to justify their credibility and their usefulness because in all of this, we ask ourselves, what were the roles of these multilateral institutions that are created to intervene and to maintain world peace. But nevertheless, this is where we are now. What are we looking at? We're looking at demilitarization of Hamas. Now, this is possibly, the ambassador highlighted this, and if you look at the various critiques, this is possibly the most tricky part of the ceasefire deal, because how realistic is it? How long will it be sustained for? Now, we have so many other aspects to look at, but I believe Adefemi Akinsonya is now ready to join us in this conversation. She's live from Tel Aviv. Adefemi, thank you so much for that incredible report that you've given us. You're right there in the heart of the action. Just give us a sense of the mood on the ground.
Thank you, Vimbai. Good morning to you, Vimbai. Good morning, Rufai.
Morning,
We've got in here at long last. Absolutely. We are on the sidelines of Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. As you can see, many people are still walking towards the square, which is behind me. I'm walking back from it. The square is at maximum capacity, and as ever, the general consensus is that of relief, that of jubilation, that of happiness. However, there is still a lot of disappointment between the Israeli people that I have spoken to, directed towards their leader, directed towards Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They feel as though he has dragged his feet in getting to this point. They feel as though this is a situation where they should have reached far sooner. Nevertheless, there is a lot of support for Donald Trump. There were cheers and jubilation when the news broke that Trump had arrived into Israel. And as the US president makes his way not only here in Tel Aviv, but throughout Israel, he's going to make his way to the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliamentary building, address the Israeli parliament there, then go on to meet with the hostage families. We have now seen that some hostages have been released. They are now in the custody of the Red Cross, which is something that drew another scream of jubilation here on the streets of Tel Aviv. A lot of happiness, a lot of excitement, but really as it stands, as you can hear, a lot of cheering. But as it stands now, there's a lot of tense and tension in the air. Whether or not this ceasefire will hold, whether or not this ceasefire will be different from what we saw in January, is what is on the minds of very many people. So sure, there is celebration. Yes, there have been some hostages being released, but there's still going to be the uncertainty over Benjamin Netanyahu's temperament. Will he be able to keep his end of the bargain? Now, with the release of these hostages, we know that that should trigger the other half of phase one, which is that Israeli prisoners who have been detained, Palestinian prisoners who have been detained here in Israel are to also be released and driven over the border into Gaza. This is going to be something that is also subject to a lot of changes overnight. We did hear that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did change some of the names of the prisoners who were due to be released in order to make it a lot more diplomatically balanced, which shows on that side perhaps there is an example of good faith coming from the Israeli government. But when I speak to the people here, a lot of them carrying their Israeli flags, nationalistic pride at an all-time high, but they are definitely separating themselves from the Israeli government. This is not a win of the Israeli government. Now, if you take a look at the front page, for example, of the Jerusalem Post, we will look at it during our newspaper review, you will see that that is a reflection of what we're seeing on the streets of Israel. Many people are congratulating Donald Trump for his role in this peace process, in getting here so far. Speaking of that peace process, we do know that after Donald Trump leaves Israel, he'll be making his way to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt to continue on with putting together world leaders and leading them in this process to getting to peace, getting to phase two. Speaking of world leaders, Keir Starmer is supposed to be making his way down there, Tony Blair too, though his presence has been quite controversial. So a lot's happening on the streets of Israel here. Still talking about the level of insecurity across the world. We do know that Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has also arrived in Rome for the Aqaba meeting. This is a meeting of different countries and their security protocols, where they are again putting together their ideas to make their countries and indeed the world safer. This is an initiative that was started by the Jordanian King Abdullah II and has been going on for some years. So our own president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has gone. He has taken the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Rubadu, along with him. Also, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Odumeku Ojukwu, also there with the president. So here we have another example of, as all of these things happening simultaneously, ultimately the world trying to move towards peace and away from insecurity. Those are your world brief stories. I know that we're running out of time, so I will take our newspapers before we continue on with our conversation here. Before I come back to you, if we take a look at the front page of This Day, we will see that This Day does lead with the friends, the colleagues, the loved ones of our dear colleague Somto Chukwu, Christelle Maduagu, who unfortunately lost her life earlier this month. I know that you all, Rufai, Bimba, you all went to Abuja for the memorial service at the This Day done. So well done to you all for participating in that. So that takes up the lion's share of this day's coverage. This day also mentions that the Minister of State and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, will not be in DC for the IMF spring meetings. It's believed that he's feeling a little unwell. That being said, he will be ably represented by the governor of the Nigerian Central Bank, the Central Bank of Nigeria, Olayemi Cardoso. That is what we see on the front page of this day. Moving on to the New Telegraph today. The New Telegraph does lead with reports that ASU, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, has commenced a 2-week warning strike over the federal government's failure to meet several outstanding demands. Now, ASU's president, Professor Emmanuel Oshodeke, says that the decision did follow an emergency meeting of the union's National Executive Council in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, citing unpaid allowances and withheld salaries. Moving on to the Daily Independent today. The Daily Independent does report strong criticism from the African Democratic Congress over the president's recent pardon. The party does say that this sets a dangerous precedent. They argue that granting clemency to individuals convicted of corruption sends a very dangerous message, and they urge the government to uphold transparency and ensure pardons are guided by due process and not political interests. Now, let's take a look at the Daily Sun. The Daily Sun reports on growing protests in Kano over the continued detention of activists, with demonstrators demanding their immediate release and calling for greater respect for citizen rights. The protests have been drawing a large crowd and it sparked a debate about public order. Now, still on the front page of the Daily Sun, we do see that there are reactions to Enugu State Governor Peter Mba's exit from the PDP's. Observers are saying that his departure could further deepen divisions within the party, while supporters describe the move as a strategic step towards building a broader political coalition ahead of future elections. The Vanguard reports that a Lagos hospital has successfully performed Nigeria's first UroLift surgery, which is a minimally invasive procedure on prostate, just to show the development that we're seeing within Nigeria's medical sector. The Punch also weighs into Peter Obi. He says that he is not worried about talks that former President Goodluck Jonathan may return to contest. We'll see what happens with both of them. And then finally, as I mentioned, if we take a look at the Jerusalem Post this morning, despite this being a historic day for hostages being released, for Israel themselves, on the front page of the Jerusalem Post, you see Donald Trump, and you see the Post hailing his efforts towards moving and functioning peace. So, as I said, that is the general consensus. Not so much a support or commendation of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but a lot of support behind Donald Trump. We'll have to see what he says when he addresses the Knesset, what he will say, will offer, what condolences, what support he will offer the victims and the families of the hostages who have been released, and what he is going to do to further peace once he gets over to Sharm el-Sheikh. Those are your World Brief stories and your newspaper review. Love to hear your thoughts.
All right, Adefemi, unfortunately, we're far out of time, but thank you so much for bringing those important stories. I'm also glad you brought some positive news about health breakthroughs taking place here in Nigeria. Always important for us to start the week with a little bit of good news.